Welcome back to my channel, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lindsay and I am the Review Queen. However, I'm not wearing my crown today because I'm not reviewing anything. Excuse me. Since we're in the month of October, this is spooky season, this is spooky month, I figure I'd do stuff paranormal. And as I mentioned before in my posts in my community, excuse me, I've been drinking a little bit. I've been talking about doing a series during this month called Terrifying Tipsy Tales, where I am tipsy while I tell you guys terrifying tales. Whether about personal experiences, whether it's me, talking about personal experiences, talking about why I enter the paranormal, and other stuff. My nose is itchy. So yeah. And of course, if you guys have any ideas of what you want me to talk about, don't hesitate to say it. If you want me to talk about a haunted location, as long as I've been there or I've heard about it, then I'll talk about it and stuff. So, the first episode was me talking about why I became interested in the paranormal, what got me into it. But today, I figure I'd go off that path just a little bit. So as I mentioned before, since I don't really circulate around this because, my channel's not really paranormal full-time. It's paranormal part-time because I'm a review channel. I'm an empath, so, while everybody does have empathy on some level, I seem to have a very, very heightened sense of it to the point where I can sense spirit activity, even if I don't see or hear anything. I can sense spirits. And sometimes I can sense their emotions, too. And then on top of that, I do have some sort of psychic ability where I've had visions that have come true. I've had dreams that correlated to stuff that happened in real life and stuff they're not exactly visions, but I'll explain that later because I'm going to talk about that. So I figure today I will talk about some visions that I had and stuff like that. Now keep in mind, I don't call myself a psychic. I just say I have psychic ability, but I don't call myself a psychic. Because, sometimes it just doesn't happen. And the funny thing is, even though I'm a believer of the paranormal, as well as, being as someone that has psychic ability, I tend to approach things kind of skeptically, ironically enough. So yeah, I figured today that I'll talk about some visions that I've had that have come true, as well as some dreams that have happened that correlated with stuff in real life. And yeah, so first I'm going to have a little bit of drinky of spicy gold. I wish I had a napkin in here. Alright. So, the very first vision I ever had happened when I was 7. And if you remember from the first video that I did from Terrifying Tipsy Tales, I talked about how I entered my interest of being in the paranormal, and it was because of my Uncle Chris's death. And my Uncle Chris died when I was 7. So, a few months after his death is actually when I first had my first vision start. Now, here's the thing. It didn't happen immediately. So, what makes these visions is you foresee something, either in your dreams or when you're awake, either in a flash vision. It's kind of hard to describe. A flash vision is almost like seeing it's almost like seeing a movie, but you're not seeing it if you're watching TV or, you're at the movie theater. It's not like that where you actually physically see it. It's within your mind. And I call those flash visions. And they're when I have a flash vision, I usually think of it as a fleeting thought. I don't really think much of it until it comes true, days, weeks, months, or even years later. Sometimes the visions are reoccurring, and other times they're not. So I'll talk about the bigger visions that I've had, and then I'll share about 2 dreams that were coincidental, that weren't exactly in the vision realm, but it coincided a lot with what happened in the waking world. And then I won't get into it much because it does get graphic, but like I had two dreams where I could have had a vision that happened in the past. But yeah. It's actually kind of hard to prove stuff like that. Unless you have like a lot of evidence and stuff. I better be careful, or Terrifying Tipsy Tales is going to become Drunken Dark Details. So, the very first vision I had, like I said, I had it when I was 7. And I dreamt it. So this was in 1989 that I had this vision through a dream. And, I dreamt in Maryland. I don't think I've ever seen these stores outside of Maryland before. I mean, if you have, let me know in the comments. But there's a grocery store chain called Giant. And when I was 7, I dreamt of one of these Giants being on fire. And it was weird because in the dream you see like a lot of smoke coming from, the ceiling or the attic area. And for some odd reason in the dream, my mom and other people were lifting me up to see into this hole in the ceiling to see if I could see the fire. Very weird, I know this, but that's what I dreamt of when I was 7. And in the corner, when I got up there, in the corner of the attic, I see this small little fire with a lot of smoke. And I wake up. I was a little scared because that was around the time that I developed the new fear. I developed the fear of what at the time I thought was a fear of fire, but I learned later on I wasn't exactly afraid of fire. No. I was afraid of burned out buildings and cars and all this other stuff. I'm afraid of the aftermath, apparently, which does not make sense to me whatsoever, because it makes more sense to be afraid of fire and not burned out stuff. But there you go. So I thought this was a dream caused by, or it was a nightmare caused by my fear. So I didn't really think much of it at the time. And then 5 years later, so I'm 12 at this point, so this would have been 1994, the Giant in Bowie, particularly at Free State, was on fire. Now, you mostly saw damage in, slight damage on the outside. It wasn't, extensive, but you saw a little bit of damage. But that, for me, and yeah, I still have that fear, by the way. I still have that fear of burned out buildings and burned out cars and all this other shit. If it's burned out, with the exception of stone houses, which does not make any sense to me, I'm afraid of it. So, yeah. I did have a second cousin that got killed in a fire, but that happened when I was 3, and I didn't develop this fear until I was 6 or 7. So, but still, it's weird. Yeah. So anyway, the Giant in Bowie, Maryland, at Free State, had arson. Someone had set a fire in the attic. It was a little fire, but there was a lot of smoke damage. Almost similar to the little details I had in my dream back when I was 7. They didn't need to close the store down because most of the damage was up in the attic, and the fire wasn't big enough to cause structural damage. So it remained open. I did not go in that store, though, for 6 months because of that fear of mine. Even if the damage was minuscule, I refused to step in that Giant for 6 months. So yeah. So that was the very first vision that came true. And I had it through a dream. I had it when I was 7, and it came true 5 years later. With some of those little details I had in that dream almost exact. So that was the first major vision I had come true. And then the next biggest vision I had that came true was when I was 19 in 2001. And by the way, this was a big year for me to have visions. Because I had 2 big visions that came true that year. So So, and I think they were both flash visions. Yeah. So, like I said, a flash vision is when you're awake and you see it like you're briefly viewing a clip of something, but you're not seeing it physically. Like, if you're watching TV or something, you're not seeing it that way. You're seeing it within your mind. It's like someone has a projector in your mind and you're only seeing it. It's only for your view and stuff like that, but you're not physically seeing it in front of you like if you're watching TV or anything like that. It's not that physical, but it's something that happens in your mind. And before anyone says it, no, I don't have this often. So the visions I have are very sporadic. There's no pattern to them. They happen when they happen. It's not like Wednesday if I touch something and I start to see something. They happen so damn randomly, I can't tell you the pattern of them. But when they do happen, I know it because then I eventually see it happening. So in this one was a flash vision of a tornado, a wedge funnel shape to be exact. And wedge funnels are like the classic wedgies. They're not the thin tornadoes. They're the wedges. I saw a wedge, just a wedge funnel cloud. And I just thought of it as a fleeting thought. I didn't really think nothing of it. But then, a few days later, we get a tornado in Maryland. We get an EF3 that hits College Park and Beltsville. It literally caused us to have to school. It caused us to miss classes at the University of Maryland the day after. Because University of Maryland was one of the places that got affected. And I know this because I went to school there at the time. It's actually interesting because I rode the bus at the time during this. And my criminal justice teacher wasn't there that day. He canceled the class. So I got to go home really an hour before the storm happened. If that did not happen, if I still had class that day, I would have been waiting for the bus during that storm. Yeah. But unfortunately, this storm did kill a few people. I remember it killed 2 sisters to pick up their car and made it fly over a apartment building. But it's weird that I had that flash vision, and then I had that happened a few days later, because Maryland isn't exactly a hotbed for tornadoes. Yes, we have tornadoes. And trust me, we had a tornado 6 months later after that one. Because in March of 2002, La Plata got hit by an F5. Although at the time now it's called an EF5. But yeah, 6 months later after this tornado hit, we had another one hit. And I didn't get anything then. But it's kind of weird how I got that flash vision a few days before that tornado actually happened. And I think it was actually 2 days before it hit that I got that. So that was a little bit weird. And I didn't get that in 2022 when I visited my family and I caught that small tornado on the camera. I mean, again, you don't see the full funnel cloud. You see part of it. You see a little bit of rotation. But even then, I didn't get anything either. So it just comes to show that when I have visions, they're very sporadic. But when I do get them, sometimes I get them down to the detail, which is insane. So, excuse me for belching. So again that year, in 2001, again when I'm 19, I had a lot of weird stuff happen when I was 19. But I'll get to the other stuff later. Right now, I just want to talk about visions that have come true. So this one's sad and a little bit traumatic, and there's a trigger warning there for talk of miscarriage and stuff. Now, I have made a video before about this, and I will link it at the end of this vid so you guys can watch it for yourself, because I don't want to go through all of that again. Just gonna give you the nitty-gritty and stuff, and then you guys can watch the video where I talk about the miscarriage, particularly. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, so let me slow down. So, okay, 2001. I had a flash vision, again, a vision when I'm awake. And I foresaw myself in a hospital bed covered with blood. Now, in the dream, no one tells me anything about having a miscarriage. It's implied I had a miscarriage. My mouth is getting dry. Hold on, let me... This is not sponsoring me, by the way. It's very good. It's a good generic brand of Pepsi Max. Very cheap, too. So this is like $12.95 at Lidl. Again, not sponsoring this video. But my mouth is getting a little bit dry. And don't worry, I'll have water later, but right now I'm just kidding. You know, yeah. Thirsty girl. I did have something hot for dinner, so that might be part of the reason. But anyway, again, I had a flash vision of being in the hospital, being in a bed covered in blood, and it was just implied to me that I had a miscarriage. No one in the dream told me I had a miscarriage. It was implied I had a miscarriage. Now, unlike the first two visions I talked about, where I just saw it once, this vision I saw multiple times before it happened. And it happened 9 years after the fact. So, I first had this vision when I was 19 in 2001, and then it came true in 2010 when I was 28. And again, the details are almost exact. I ended up being in a hospital bed, and yes, it was covered in blood because I had bled out from a miscarriage at 10 weeks, and I bled so much that I needed a blood transfusion. Again, I'm not going into the whole entire story. I've already talked about this on YouTube. So if you want to know about that, if you want to know the worst day of my life, I will link that to you at the end of this video, and you can watch it yourself, because I don't want to rehash that in this vid and stuff. But that's what happened, and I foresaw it 9 years before it happened. And at the time, I didn't think this was a vision. I just thought, oh, you know, it's just a fleeting thought that I'm having because this is something I'm afraid of to happen to me. I think anybody would be afraid to have this happen to them if they really want children. I really do think that. Because, you know, that's the biggest fear of yours when you want to be a parent is you have a miscarriage, you know. It's bad, and I've had 4 miscarriages. But only one of them ended up with me being in the hospital, bleeding out, and needing a blood transfusion because of it. But yeah, I mean, this is like the first vision that I had when I was 7, like, where what I saw was almost exact to the detail. Exact. So yeah, but that vision I had multiple times before it happened. It was probably one of the few visions I've had that happened multiple times before it actually finally happened. And like I said, it happened 9 years after the first time I saw it. So yeah. Another vision I had was when I was 29, so this was 2011. And it's a flash vision, you know, something I see that happens when I'm awake. I think when I think back on it, I think the only dream I had that was a full-on vision was the one I had when I was 7, and I foresaw that fire in the attic of the giant food store. But this vision that I had of the miscarriage is one of the ones that I had that was reoccurring before it finally happened. So this vision is a flash vision. And sorry. I should have a freaking napkin here. Oh well. And yeah, like I said, flash vision. I only had one. I only saw this once, and it was weird how I saw it because it was like a news article or it was like a newspaper clipping, and it said house burned or house on fire or something like that. And it was this abandoned house that used to be near an acquaintance of mine in Sweden. And I actually been in that house before too, before it burned down. But it was weird how I had like almost like a newspaper article of it burning down. I didn't see it actually on fire. That was the weird part. I saw a headline that said it burned down. That's all I saw. in English, which is weird because this happened in Sweden. And then a few weeks later, someone arsoned it and it burned down, which was crazy to me. So yeah, that's another vision that happened. Now here's the funny thing. Sometimes I go a while without visions happening. So then I start to think that I'm losing my ability to have visions, and then I have something that happens again. And this is an example of one of such of those cases. Because last year, and this was this beginning of this year. No, it happened last year. Yeah. So last year, I had a flash vision. Excuse me. This is going to become a no burp challenge, I think. So there were some alcohol bottles on top of our refrigerator. And every time I went to open the fridge, I would see like a bottle falling down and hitting me in my head, like literally right here. Now at the time I thought, oh, this is my instinct screaming at me to like either change the bottles or not open up the door too hard. I didn't really think it was a vision until it happened. So a few months later, and this is one of my reoccurring visions, by the way. This is the other one of the two visions I had. You know, the miscarriages is the one that happened a lot, that I kept seeing a lot. This is another vision I kept seeing a lot within months of me first seeing it, and then when it actually happened. So this happened within months. And sure enough, I opened the freaking fridge door, and the freaking bottle on top falls down, hits me here, and amazingly, the bottle did not break. It didn't break in my vision either. The only thing I saw was a bottle falling down and hitting me literally right here, and that's what happened. And oddly enough, it didn't bruise from that. That was weird. I did get a headache a few days later, and I did keep in contact with the nurse at VAR Central to make sure. VAR Central is like the health clinic here in Sweden. To make sure that, should I come in and be treated or whatnot? So yeah, I made sure I had contact with somebody. But it turns out that I was fine, But I never bruised. That was crazy to me. Because that hurt like a bitch when it happened. But yeah, the bottle never broke. I mean, it didn't break in my vision either. It hit me exactly in the same place that I saw it. And I had it like months before it happened. And I kept having it months before it happened. Now, yeah, some people could say that was my instincts screaming at me, but yeah, I just thought of it as a fleeting thought, like I normally do. But that's the fun thing. When I do see anything, I always say, "Oh, it's a fleeting thought based off of my imagination or a fear, or if it's a dream, oh, it's a nightmare or some sort." I don't really take it seriously until something happens. So everything that I mentioned that are visions or are things that I saw days, weeks, months, or years in advance before they actually happened. And some of them, like the very first vision I had, and the miscarriage vision I had, and the vision where I had a bottle fall on my head, were all exact to the detail. That's the crazy part to me. Now, these are not exactly visions per se, but they're weird, and they're a coincidence, I would say. So, if you guys don't know, I'm definitely blitzed now. So maybe this is finally becoming drunken dark details now. I don't know what to say for the last D, but we're probably going from terrifying tipsy tales to drunk darkened details. I can't figure out another word for D that would be like tales or stories or anything. I mean, maybe you guys can tell me in the comments. So, okay, so in 2007, my grandfather, my dad's dad, has melanoma, and I did last see him in May of 2007. So I did see him months before he did die. Well, I had a dream, and I mean, obviously at this point I'm living in Sweden, but I dreamt that I was back at my parents' house in Maryland. And here's the funny thing. My parents' house is the house that my grandparents used to live in. My parents gave my dad the house. So you could say that they came back to visit the house one more time. So, but when he went to leave, my dad is crying. And here's the thing about my father. I have never seen my dad cry in all of my life. And I've been alive for 43 years. And I never seen my dad cry once. My mom, in all the times that she's been with my dad, has never seen my father cry. So for me to see my dad cry in a dream was amazing. And suspicious. Do you know how crazy it is to see your parent cry who never cries? It's weird. And because I had a dream like that, it kind of it made me suspicious. And also in that dream, when I hugged my grandfather, I kind of consider this oddly enough as the last time I said goodbye to him in a weird way. I'll get to the point of why. But anyway, my dad's crying in the dream as my grandfather says his goodbyes, and I give him a big hug. It's one of those hugs that you get that is basically saying this is the last hug you're getting and stuff. So I wake up. I don't think much of it. And then I later learned that day that my grandfather was being put in a hospice. And then a month later after that, he died. So this dream wasn't exactly a vision per se, but it kind of happened coincidentally on the very day that my grandfather gets put in a hospice. So I would like to think that as the last time I really saw my grandfather, because it was we hugged, it was the last hug we were ever going to have. And like I said, it was suspicious that my dad was crying in the dream. Another dream I had that was kind of similar to that dream involved my grandmother, my Nana, my mom's mom. And my Nana had COPD. And, I already knew she wasn't doing well at this point. I already knew that. So, I dreamt of me and Alex going out to California to see her. And, she's not doing good. If I remember correctly in the dream, someone mentions she's going to die at a certain time. And she's like, no, I want to wait a bit. Well, again, this is not a vision. I don't consider this a vision. It's more of a coincidence, a weird coincidence. But a few weeks after I had this dream where I basically was saying goodbye to her in the dream, she died. So, yeah. Which drink do I want to drink now? Oh, I drink the spicy coffee. Yeah, tasty. The bits at the end, I'm not a fan of. But it's tasty. And of course, the generic version of Pepsi Max, which is really good. Cheap, too. I'm definitely going to drink water soon. But anyway. Now, I don't think I'll get into the dreams where I felt like I saw my past lives getting killed. I feel like that's for a different day because they're not exactly visions. But they were the start of me developing a belief in reincarnation. Because it just felt so real. I won't go into details, but with one dream, I dreamt that I was in 1880 London. I worked as a peasant and had a master that I needed to come home and make dinner for. Took a shortcut, saw a woman getting killed by two men. They saw me, they killed me. I literally died as I fell. That's how quick the death was. And the reason why I didn't die in my sleep is because I knew it wasn't me actually dying in the dream. It was someone I was dreaming this stuff through. Or seeing this stuff through. But it just felt so real. And the fact that I still remember the details to this day. Because I had both these dreams when I was 19. Again, the same age that I had The dream about the vision about the miscarriage and the vision about the tornado. I had all this stuff happen when I was 19. I don't know what was going on at 19, other than me going to school at the University of Maryland. And like this other dream I had around the same time was me being in 1840s France. I had black hair and green eyes because I saw myself in a fountain at one point. I was burning up. I was sick. I was weak. I was crawling. I was in this village in France. Excuse me. And I kept coughing up stuff that burned. And I think from research, I think it might have been TB, if I'm not mistaken. But it hurt like hell, and it's a pain I never felt in this life. And I ended up dying on the steps at City Hall and stuff from this ailment. So yeah. Well, y'all, that's today's video. If you believe in visions or you think you've had visions, but were they and stuff, of course, again, you don't have to believe in this stuff. I have a husband who's not a believer. I have a brother who's not a believer, so it's cool if you don't believe it. Just be respectful of people in the comments. That's all I ask for and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if you do have visions or you believe you have visions, you can tell me in the comments and stuff. Or if you're interested in any other questions involving my visions or my psychic ability, don't hesitate to ask. Because those are not the only things I can do. I've had out-of-body experiences too. Well, asleep, of course, never when I'm awake, but I have dreamt of weird things through other people's eyes, which is just as unnerving. So, yeah. Well, yeah, if you like this video, smash like the like button. If you subscribe, I'll be absolutely delighted, and I'll see y'all later. Cheers!